It's about the restoration of our republic. We want to educate, encourage, enable the power. We stand for integrity, honesty, self-reliance, self-defense, and most importantly, no compromise on our foundational principles. This is America's Voice Now.
Find America's Voice Now on Facebook and at americasvoicenow.org. Here's Michael Evans.
Good morning, America. You're listening to America's Voice Now. My name is Michael Evans. I'm your host this morning. Glad that you're able to join us. Appreciate you. We're going to cover a number of topics this morning, not the least of which is going to be the issue of defunding Obamacare. As you're aware, and perhaps you're not, October 1st is the deadline where you will have to begin signing up for Obamacare. And in addition to that, January 1st of 2014 is when it actually kicks in. Now, we've had a lot of discussions out there about how to resolve Obamacare. It's apparent that no one likes it, not even Congress. In fact, Congress went so far as to give themselves a waiver from that which they want to make you participate in. That speaks volumes, by the way, but that's okay. The second segment, we're going to talk about 1 million truckers who have kicked off this new program, and I support it 1,000,000%. I want you to support it, too. And so we're going to talk about 1 million truckers who on October 11th through the 13th are going to follow the Ayn Randian principle of strike. And I do mean strike. They're going to lock down the country. They're asking everybody to participate and assist them, those who aren't truckers, by not doing any banking, no commerce, no transactions, no money, no shopping. Lock the country down. And let's send a message to these syphilitic, brain-dead guppies over in Congress that we've had enough of their shenanigans, enough of their crap, that we've had enough of them. Our third segment, I'm going to read you an open letter which I penned off to a member of the Republican Party in the state of Missouri yesterday, because it kind of falls in line with the message that the truckers who want to shut down America are sending. And I think it's a resounding statement that will help you to grasp and articulate the arguments and the positions that a lot of us have taken over the years. You know, Congress, they all pretend as if things are going so hunky-dory and well. Well, they're only going well for them, who are making $172,000 or $192,000 a year and have another $50,000 to $100,000 a year in perks and bennies and freebies. Not to mention that they're wined and dined by the most liberally spending lobbyists in the nation every day, every night. They're taken out to dinner. They're fed $1,000 dinners by lobbyists who want to grab their ear. Well, of course life is wonderful if you're living like a king. But the rest of us are sitting back here suffering, trying to figure out, can we pay the electric bill or should we pay the car insurance? Meanwhile, our rights are being stripped from us day in and day out while we slide into fascism. Plain and simple. That's it in a nutshell, folks. So I'm going to elaborate on that in our third segment. I encourage you to be there, be a part of it, hear it, because it's an important message. And I think it will voice all those things that you want to voice, but struggle and are frustrated about. The fourth segment is going to be talking about raising the debt limit. The president, believe it or not, actually came out, and this is his quote, this is not mine. Raising the debt ceiling does not increase our debt. I kid you not. That was his statement. I'm going to play it for you so you can hear it yourself. It is so absurd, such a ridiculous statement, that it almost doesn't merit review other than the fact that it came from the traitor-in-chief's mouth himself. I mean, talk about refusing to recognize there's an elephant standing on our feet in a room the size of a jail cell. And this idiot actually has the unmitigated gall to come out there and try to explain to us, to give us some kind of a circular rabbit-trailed rationalization that raising the debt limit does not actually raise the debt. I beg to differ, brain dead, but what do you think the term and phrase debt limit means? You can give us all the rumblings and mumblings of your circular rationale, but we're not buying it because we understand what the English language means. And you can try to redefine it by verbicide all you want, but we're not fooled for a moment. It's going to be a hard-hitting show today, folks. Stick with us. You're going to enjoy this. All right, let's talk about the House trying to defund Obamacare. There's a couple of different issues out there today. One, there's a guy named Vitter, who has put forth a proposal that says, if everybody else has got to buy Obamacare, so does Congress. And the president, with his illegal, unconstitutional, reprehensible, treasonous act against everybody in America who's not in Congress, is unlawful and unethical. But more importantly, he says that if you're a member of Congress, you got to play by the rules and buy Obamacare out of your own pocket, just like everybody else. Now, Congress, for the record, has 75% of their health care cost covered by us taxpayers. Not just Congress, but all of their aides, all of their assistants, all of their idiots their minions surrounding them, who feed them bad information, misrepresent the phone calls that you make that they take down over on the legal pad at the desk, and live like leeches and ticks on your blood. So now they turned around and put pressure. Harry Reid and that other sycophant, Boehner, put pressure on the Office of Policy Management to say that the original amendment that Grassley put in the Obamacare package, that Congress had to abide by the same law as the rest of us related to Obamacare, is actually not really what it sounds like. Here we go again with redefinitions. So they came out and said that the president, let me just give it to you this way. The exchange implementation deadline approached, and pampered politicos decided they'd made a mistake in voting for Obamacare with the Grassley Amendment. So instead of repealing the law or the amendment, they chose to strong-arm the Office of Personnel Management into ruling that the Grassley Amendment doesn't mean what it actually says. Politico writes, OPM initially balked at such a ruling, but Speaker of the House John Boehner, a Republican, traitor, and Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid, a Democrat, traitor, under fire from their rank-and-file lawmakers and staff, pressured President Barack Obama to get personally involved in the matter, which was a violation of the Constitution because you, Mr. President, are required as a part of your job description to faithfully execute and uphold the laws of the Constitution and the nation. And you've turned around and given the Congress a free pass to get out of Obamacare without any constitutional authority against all rule of law. Sir, that makes you a lawbreaker. Anyway, they agreed that they would allow Congress and all of their staffs to continue to be subsidized to the tune of 75% of their health care. Because, as you know, those in higher income brackets, which, trust me, everybody in Washington is on the higher income bracket, you can bet your bottom dollar. Even the janitors make $100,000. Those people are required to pay up to 2.5% of their gross income for their health care. The poor will get subsidized, which, by the way, that number's growing in leaps and bounds if you listen to yesterday's show. So, they turned around and gave Congress a 75% Benny on health care law that you and I don't get, which tells us that They don't like the bill either. Now, a number of people in the press did come out. Greta Van Susteren, who, by the way, I happen to like, she called it appalling and indecent. Senator David Vitter from Louisiana, as soon as it was announced, popped out a press release that says, and this is, I love this. Here's a senator who's actually got some brass between his legs. This is exactly why America rightly hates Washington. Obamacare is a train wreck, even for Congress. So it gets fixed. For Congress only. What the flip about fixing it for America? Hey, thank you, Mr. Vitter. We appreciate your honesty. He stuck an amendment into an energy bill that is currently being debated in the Senate that would overturn the ruling from the Office of Policy Management, or OPM. Isn't that an interesting acronym? OPM is the Office of Policy Management. It also stands for Other People's Money. And he wants to force Congress and members of Congress to pay, and their staffs to pay for their own insurance when they're on the exchanges. Now, he's got the sponsorship of 5 other senators: Michael Enzi from Wyoming, Dean Heller from Nevada, James Inhofe from Oklahoma, Ron Johnson from Wisconsin, and Mike Lee from Utah. I believe Cruz is also signed on to it after this. Vitter spent much of last week trying to get the Senate to vote on his amendment, but they won't vote on it. So here's the kicker. He's battling the leadership of both parties to try to pull this off, right? Democrats don't want to vote on it because if they do, it would do away, number one, with the subsidy, which, of course, they want. But also because if they vote against it and they preserve their exemption, it would demonstrate that they don't believe in Obamacare. And these are the guys who passed it, remember, without a single Republican vote. Now, Republicans, they want the free lunch, but they don't want to let anybody know it's a free lunch. So they don't want to go on the record and vote publicly for this thing, because if they do, they would expose themselves for the charlatans, the frauds, and the corrupt ticks that they are. So anyway, here's what they did. 3 other bills have been written to try to knock out the Vitter bill. And here's how petty these guys are. Now, Vitter was a guy who was accused of consorting with a prostitute when that the D.C. Madam's phone book was uncovered and Vitter's phone number was found in there, right? So the first thing they did was, talk about scurrilous and dirty. You know, these guys remind me of a bunch of 6th graders who sit there and play dirty little games on each other. They immediately came out with 3 different bills. One that would prohibit federal insurance subsidy for any member or aide if an ethics committee found probable cause to determine, quote unquote, that the individual engaged in the solicitation of prostitution. Well, tell me that's not directly related to Vitter. Come on. Now, and by the way, Vitter did apologize publicly. He said, it was a very serious sin. He apologized to his wife, the public, the state, and they dropped an ethics case against him because it was conducted. The misconduct occurred before he was a senator, right? Now, the second option is an even broader brush to try to paint Vitter as the monster here. That would stop insurance subsidies to anyone found to have engaged in, quote, improper conduct reflecting discredibility. That's not even a word. On the congressional office involved. Well, okay. It would bar an insurance subsidy for anyone found to have engaged in, quote, improper conduct reflecting discredibility on the congressional office involved. So let's see. That means that basically every senator and every House member would immediately be disqualified because these are the same people who routinely violate their oath of office and completely obviate and abdicate their responsibility to you every single day. They sell their votes to the highest bidder. They betray us on a day in and day out basis. Every function that they're in there in that suit that they make, every vote they make, every breath they take is a betrayal of you. So if they were actually to impartially apply this other new bill, that means basically it would accomplish the same thing. And number 3, this is the third one, and it would be the most effective if it's passed, according to the New American. It would cut off insurance subsidies for anyone who actually votes for the Vitter Amendment, even if the amendment fails. Now, you've got to be kidding me. If that ain't unconstitutional, I don't know what is. So what you're saying is you are going to blackmail, coerce, and hold these people at the point of a gun that if they vote for Vitter's amendment, even if it fails, they lose their health care. That, ladies and gentlemen, shows you whoever wrote that one and whoever has co-sponsored it should be immediately removed from office for treason. That's what it is. Aiding and abetting the enemy. All right. Here's the other method. Congress has got 2 different things that they can do. One, I heard last night in a significant interview with Mike Lee, who's the Republican from Utah. He's the Republican senator from Utah. I like Mike Lee. And Ted Cruz from Texas. He's the freshman senator from Texas who's been making all the waves. They were on Hannity's show last night, and I wanted to see that interview because I happened to want to hear what both of these guys have to say. Because, to be honest with you, out of everybody in Congress, these 2 guys are the most outspoken, and quite frankly, the most who line up or align with the views that I have. Not totally, because they're in Congress, but pretty close. So here's the deal. There's 2 things that can happen. One, Boehner has put out, there's 2 different paths this is going to take. The first one is that there's a conservative bill that was introduced today that will allow a tax break for anyone who buys their own insurance. And that tax break will be $7,500 per person or $20,000 for the family. So if you are forced to buy your insurance, whether you buy it through the exchange, whether you buy it through your employer, it doesn't matter how you get it. If you have health insurance, you're entitled to a deduction of up to $7,500 against your income and payroll taxes, regardless of what the insurance cost is. And if you're a family, you would be able to deduct $20,000. It doesn't matter whether the insurance comes from your employer, from Obamacare, from anybody else. It also says that it doesn't matter how much your contribution is to your company or to the exchange, you're entitled to a deduction of up to $20,000 for the family. Okay? So whether you spend $5,000 or $15,000 or $18,500 or $19,500 or $22,000, you're entitled to a $20,000 deduction for the family. Now, what that means is that 75% of the rank and file House Republicans are on the study committee. So that means it's got a pretty good chance of getting through because this is a combination of their collective minds. So the issue here is if this goes through, that would reduce the tax bill on Americans to the tune of $20,000 per family or $7,500 if you're single. Now, $7,500 is a pretty hefty chunk of change, even if you're young and single and being racked the hardest by Obamacare, because basically Obamacare takes the youngest of us and those who make the most money, which is obviously, when you got a great job, you're out of college for a few years, you've been out there slugging it away, you've kind of climbed the corporate ladder a little bit, you're making good money, or you've started your own business and you're making good money, and you're racked for 2.5% of your income for the total cost of the insurance. So, if you're making, $150,000 or $100,000 a year, your insurance cost could be high. And so the $7,500 deduction would cover even probably the young single earners, or pretty close to it. It won't cover all of it, but it'll cover pretty close to it. So the issue is that that's one method that they can do this by. So effectively what will happen is it'll take all the teeth out of the sponge of Obamacare, drawing revenue resources away from America. The other way, which Lee and Cruz are suggesting, and I actually like this one even more, so listen for this in the news and use your critical thinking skills to understand and hear what's going on. Read all about this, because this is going to be the next fight for the next 2 months. And here's what it is. In the upcoming government funding bill, they have to fund the government by October 1st or we're out of money. We're already out of money and have been since May. That's a whole nother story. I've done whole shows on it. But for the argument's sake, on paper, we're out of money. And so they've got to fund the government. Therein comes Obama's claim that raising the debt limit doesn't actually raise the debt. Okay, whatever. What Lee what Mike Lee and Cruz are suggesting is this. Under a continuing resolution, fund everything in the government that the government needs to spend. Every dime, don't change anything, don't ask for any cuts, don't ask for anything. But withhold all funding for Obamacare. Now, that takes all the wind out of the sails of the Democrats in the Senate, who, if the House passes the continuing resolution that way and it goes to the Senate will have to make a decision as to whether or not they're going to approve this. And if they do, Obamacare's dead. If they don't, then they cannot turn around and say the Republicans have shut down the government. And even if they do and Obama won't sign it, he's lost the ability to say the Republicans shut down the government. If a government shutdown occurs at that point, it's because the Senate Democrats or the Democrat president refused to sign the bill where the only issue in open contention is Obamacare. I like that approach. I like it, and I'll tell you why. One, it puts all the onus on the Senate and on the on the president to be responsible if the government does in fact get shut down. And the second thing that it does is that it immediately drags Obamacare to its knees. The third thing I like the most about it is that it's fully constitutional. And here's why. Only the House holds the strings to the purse, number one, and only the House can fund and initiate spending, which is in direct contradiction to Obamacare because, as you know, Obamacare started in the Senate, not in the House. And it is a spending bill, no matter what else anybody calls it. It's unconstitutional in so many aspects. I don't give a rat's rear end what the Supreme Court says. We all know what it is. And it's null and void and of no effect. Thomas Jefferson. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to have the 1 million trucker strike. That's our next segment. Make sure you stick with us. If you're catching us streaming live on our video on our website, just wait a couple of seconds after I pause the video, and we'll come right back on. If you're catching us live on one of our radio stations, stick with us. Take this break with us. It's a capitalist break. Radio ain't free. We'll be right back. You're going to love it. Well, maybe you won't love it, but it's the price you pay to listen to a great show for nothing, right? I absolutely love it. Okay. You can also catch us on our listen line. I'll give you those numbers when we come back from this break. And for the record, we're going back out on the air locally in the West Plains area on Monday. I'll give you the information when we return from the break on that, too. The station is 99.3. It's called Big Country 99. Country by day, Patriots by night. That I love. We'll be right back.